Hi, this is Christine, your relationship and mindset mastery doctor and your leverage for change. Today I'm coming to speak to you about emotional abuse in children. And you may be wondering, why am I speaking about emotional abuse in children, especially since I mainly deal with relationships and mindset and that kind of stuff. But you'd be surprised to know that a lot of the behaviors that manifest themselves in when a child grows into adulthood is from the emotional abuse that they experienced as children. So today I'm going to speak about this because I believe it's an important thing for parents now who are bringing up, they're raising their little children and may not realize the impact emotional abuse can cause on their children's lives for the rest of their lives, because emotional abuse is something that stays with you, stays with someone for the rest of their lives unless they get help to manage it. And of course, guys, emotional abuse, like anything else, is going to be along a spectrum. You're going to have mild abuse and all the way up to the upper levels, right? And of course, depending on the level of abuse, the more significant is the emotional problems that these children will have as they grow older and participate in relationships, any kind of relationships, but especially romantic relationships. um, it is sad that there are these three types of abuse. There's physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, and there's emotional abuse. But there's more data. Well, I wouldn't say data, but more focus put on the sexual and the physical abuse than any focus that's put on the emotional abuse. And I think the thing is that because you cannot see emotional and physical and sexual abuse, there's evidence of it. There's evidence of it, physical evidence of that. But with the emotional abuse, there's really no physical evidence. Now, as therapists, as psychotherapists, as counselors, as mental health practitioners, you can see a physical manifestation of it as the child, in a child. You can see, but you cannot guarantee it until you have a conversation and maybe do some further investigation. But you can see it because these things have certain evidence, but there's no physical damage done to the person or sexually where they can be. You can physically see it, as in sexual and a physical abuse, right? So that's the thing, is that all of that emotional abuse is usually internal, and because of that, it can also be hidden by the child or the person that is experiencing this until it manifests itself into a relationship later on, or in some kind of a behavior. For example, emotional abuse is some of the way it manifests itself is in depression, in anxiety, in substance abuse, in aggression. Those bullies at school or bullies in life, people who just go around bullying people. A lot of that is because they were emotionally abused as children as well. We don't think of that. It also manifests itself in low self-image, low self-worth, and as I always mention, attachment issues, which is always what I focus on, right? And this is where this emotional abuse comes from. So I wanted to really shine a light on some of the ways that parents or caregivers can cause this, and sometimes without knowing that they're causing this damage to their children that is going to stay with them for the rest of their lives. All right, guys. So a lot of parents, we just go about. Nobody was given a manual when we have kids. We don't have a book. We don't go to a class to study how to be a parent. And so a lot of us parents, we just go and we have children and we do the best that we can. Sometimes we will be smart enough to go read some books and maybe learn from older people who may have they value their opinions because they see their children grow up into healthy individuals. But for the most part, we all just kind of winging it, right? And so sometimes we do things that we're not supposed to do. We say things we're not supposed to say. And so I want to put a spotlight on it because it's really important, guys, that we take responsibility right now. And awareness is the first thing to that onto that journey. So let's look into how some of the things that parents or caregivers can do without knowingly, some knowingly, some will definitely knowingly emotionally abuse their children because they might have been emotionally abused as well. So they just did the same thing to their children. So now we want the cycle to stop because it damages future generations. It's damaged you, and you've done the same thing. It's the same cycle. You're having issues now as adults in your relationships. So we want the buck to stop here. All right, guys. So as I said, this falls along a spectrum depending on how the parent deals with their children, right? And there are markers of intensities that will cause these emotional abuse to be along the spectrum of lower level to really high level emotional abuse. So some of the things that you can notice if you see it has to be on a regular basis. So the caregiver would have to be doing this or saying these things to their children on a regular basis. The intensity, the emotional intensity that they use to express these emotional abuse is also one of the very important factors, because that emotion is what that child feels when they're told certain things, right? The words that they use is also another thing that you have to be really careful about. The other thing is the tone of the voice and the body language. You know, if somebody's the body language, they're angry, you can see it in their face and their veins bulging and red and their fist raised or ready to hit you, or so angry or pointing or that kind of thing. All of that is the intensity of how you approach a child when you're going to emotionally abuse them, and you have to be very careful of that, because you can you can correct children in another way without emotionally abusing them. Okay, so what are some of the things that parents do wrongly to cause these emotional abuse, or more likely say they, for example, if a child is crying, they may say, shut up, shut up and get over it, and stop being a sissy. And this is usually said a lot to boys, especially by their fathers. The fathers, think that boys should be macho and not express feelings or cry. And they will say, shut up, you're being a sissy, or stop it, you're, whatever it might be, and disgrace and shame them, shame their sons, in trying to shame them into being a man. Man up, you're crying, you're going to be a sissy. Now, what that teaches the son is that they should not be showing any emotion. So what they do is, as they grow up, they stuff that emotion, and now when they go into so they can't express their emotion because they were never taught to, they were never allowed to, and it was shameful to really express your emotion. So you cannot show it. You're a man, you're a boy, or you're a male, so you shouldn't show your emotions. And so these men grow up not being able to be emotionally close to their partners, their children, or even themselves, right? And so they grow up, and now this is a partner that who will have the dismissive avoidant attachment style, because that person was told all the time, you cannot, it's a shame, you're a sissy if you show your emotions, right? And these people distance themselves from emotion because they're not supposed to show emotions. They could not, they were not given the go ahead to express themselves emotionally if they're feeling pain or there's something bothering them. They couldn't cry. All right. They also, the next thing is, the parents may tell their children, you're so fat, you're so chubby, why are you, you're so fat, you're so short, you're too dark, especially when it comes to colored skin. You're too dark, you're too skinny, you're too, your hair's too kinky, you're, things like that. You'll be surprised, parents tell kids things like that. Now, what that does to a child is that if your parents are telling you things like that, you feel your self-image is now gone down into the gutter because you don't feel like you're worth anything. You feel like, like you're the ugliest thing on the planet. You're the most, disgusting thing on the planet, right? So your self-image, your self-worth, a lot of times this turns, these are people who will now turn to be anorexic and do, bulimic later on because they want to be, they want to be skinny. And this sickness is that no matter how skinny they get, that emotional thing that said to them they're too fat, they still look in the mirror and see themselves as fat. So it is a real trauma, guys. Don't tell your children they're too fat. Find other ways to help them to be active, to lose whatever weight. Don't tell your kids they're too ugly. They're your children. Their hair is too kinky or their whatever it might be. Don't do that. I mean, you're destroying your children. You're basically destroying your kids. The next thing that caregivers will do sometimes, they will say things like, why are you always so stupid and doing silly things? Why do you eat like that? Why do you dress like that? Why do you, all of that is like, it's taking away the freedom of the child to express themselves as an individual, right? So this child now feels constrained. Their self-image is in the ground because they're always being criticized about how they look, how they dress, how they eat. Their self-worth is like down in the dumps, right? And a lot of them get depressed, get into this state of depression that they cannot come out of. Some become suicidal because they feel so unloved, right? The next thing is that some parents or some parents who have their kids maybe very young and they weren't ready for kids, and somehow they're blaming the kids. No, guys, that's ridiculous. You're the one who went out there and had sex and had this child. This child did not ask to come into the world, right? But some parents get angry with their little babies for being born. And so they tell them things like, I wish you were never born. I should have given you up for adoption, when you were born, or I should have, what is it? I mean, horrible things. I'm going to send you away to your grandmother, or I'm going to send you away to your father, or something. So this child grows up feeling unwanted, does not feel that they deserve to be loved, right? They grow up feeling that, this sense of just being worthless and wishing that they were never born now. And some of these kids will become suicidal. They'll have suffer from depression, anxiety, all different sorts of mental illnesses because of this, right? The next thing is that they'll also have abandonment issues when they grow up, and this is the attachment style that will suffer from this the most, is the anxious, preoccupied, because they feel like nobody wants them. They were never wanted. It's like their parents they're telling them that they wish they were never born. They're going to give them away. They wish that they'd given them away to be adopted, or maybe had a miscarriage or something. You know what I'm saying? Or had that other thing. You know what I'm talking about? But I mean, this child, of course, who would want anyone telling them something like that? That's going to make them feel as if they're not wanted. These children did not ask to be born, but this is how they're being treated, because the parents are angry now that they now have to stay home and take care of this child that they've brought into this world through their own actions. The next thing is having a child having to watch parental abuse, their father beating up their mom, or verbally abusing their mom, or just or just all of this abuse, they have to be in the presence when they see their father doing this to their mom. Mostly the fathers doing this, guys, because usually, I'm sure I heard it, I hear that it happens with women abusing men as well, but for the most part it's usually men abusing women. So when the child is there in the home and they're hearing their mother screaming and they can't do anything, and they're hearing their father beating them or their mother beating them, whoever it is, but just this whole abuse that's happening around them, and they feel helpless and hopeless, and they feel, sometimes they blame themselves because they figure that they should be able to help their mother. Sometimes they go into a place of depression. Sometimes they're angry, this anger, so they get angry for everything, and they have this aggression that they just cannot explain for everything, because they're angry with themselves that they, especially if it's a boy child, they feel that they should have been able to protect their mom, because that's how the male is, right? And that is just how they think, but they don't realize that they were little babies and little kids, and they could not do anything against this big man that's beating up their mom, right? So the next thing is the parent or caregivers may tell them, you cost so much. I wish you always want something, and so this child begins to feel unwanted and unworthy of anything, right? And they feel unworthy of love. They may feel suicidal. Their self-worth is in the self-image and self-worth is in the gutters. The other thing, guys, is comparison. Comparing your child with either a sibling or a cousin or a friend or somebody else that they think is better off than their child, better than their child in some way. Oh, why can't you be like this one? Oh, why can't you be like that one? Or why can't you be like this? I wish you were like this. So of course that child feels unwanted, unloved, unworthy of love, because if my mother can tell me that, why can't you be that, and they prefer to have this other child because they're better than me in some way, you can understand how that can really mess with the child's psyche and emotional health. The other thing that parents will tell their children are, you're a loser, you're stupid, you're a failure. You'll turn out just like your dad or like your mom or whatever it is, if they're failures or in some way, right? And so these are things that parents say and don't realize that it is almost like a death sentence for their kids, because now their kids grow up thinking that they are not worthy. Some are suicidal. They suffer from different mental health issues because they feel unworthy, unloved, that they should not have been born, and it causes a lot of mental health issues, guys. A lot of mental health issues. So please be very, very careful of what you say to your children. The last thing I want to finish up with is false promises. You want your child to do something, but then you tell them something and you never go through with it. Oh, I will, if you pass your exam, or if you take out the garbage, or if you do this or you do that, I'm going to buy you this, or I'm going to take you here. Don't do that, because then the child learns that they cannot trust you. They cannot trust you. And if they can't trust their parents, who else can they trust? Now they grow up with trust issues because they could not have trusted their parents. So who else can they trust, right? And they also feel betrayed. They also feel betrayed. And so in relationships, they end up going there not trusting and always looking to be betrayed in their relationships. So guys, I hope this helps. This video is running a little long, so I want to wrap up now. But if you've learned anything in this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. This is Christine, your relationship and mindset master doctor, and your leverage for change. Please, guys, also subscribe to my channel so that you hit the notification bell, so that as soon as I upload a new video, you will get notified of it. I'll see you next time with another video. Have a great rest of the day, guys. Take care.